Movie legend Rob Reiner and his wife died within one place of safety, at hand someone who knew them well. Rob spent sharing family stories for decades, love, human connection. But inside things were falling apart at home. His son Nick's persistent public battle with addiction had strained the family. However, nothing prepared anyone for heated argument the night before the killings or aftermath. Now, investigators revisit old words Nick said regarding his father. Warning-like remark signs predated everything. Collapsed. Tragic event. Rob Reiner and spouse Michelle Singer Reiner their final night on December 13, 2025. That night, they attended a Christmas celebration by Conan. A familiar scene co-workers, friends, and longtime connections for what was supposed peaceful Christmas celebration. But something was awry during the gathering. Investigators later learned from witnesses that a heated argument ensued. Dad Rob and son Nick Reiner. The encounter grabbed notice. This was not an argument that went quiet unnoticed. Raised voices. Tension visible. Nearby people could hear in. Numerous people saw the immediate tension. Several attendees subsequently described Nick's conduct as alarming. His deeds were notable that people remembered them well next day. Guests said he was frightening everyone. A phrase later circulated among investigators began reconstructing events in the hours before fatalities. Rob remained involved that he confronted it. Witnesses stated that managing the situation immediately conflict rather than avoidance. Michelle kept him company during exchange. Stayed together, moving together instead of apart, delaying the situation else. Soon later, Rob and Michelle together departed the party. They left. Acted as if they wished to remove Nick from setting and keep close rather than let it happen continue publicly. For some guests, seemed like parents attempting to help take charge of a crisis. Later that night, Rob Reiner spoke over phone with Eric Idle. The discussion of future were continuous debates concerning Spinal Tap 2. Eric says the discussion centered on projects ahead, not personal. There was no exchange details stressed or urgent. Rob was active, forward-thinking, talking about unfinished work. When talking to pals, before that night, Rob reported admitted something for later weighty meaning. Fearful, he set off his son. It wasn't casual. It showed care, not anger. Or anger. It sounded then like a parent worrying about behavior could not control. But what occurred after they returned home show their fear. At some point early December 14, death of Rob and Michelle Reiner inside their Brentwood house. The Los Angeles DA later verified the deaths before daybreak. Authorities highlighted that the exact minute was unknown, but clear time frame. Around 300 Romy Reiner, their daughter, resided across the street. Check it in them. But when she entered the house, she discovered both parents unresponsive. The emergency call was made quickly. Officers and paramedics from Los Angeles police arrived soon after. Both Rob and Michelle were declared deceased on scene. The secured house and investigators promptly ruled it homicide investigation. Investigators quickly noted that no evidence of forced entry, unharmed doors and windows. There was no break-in or battle visible from outside. This quickly limited the scope to an investigation. Whoever did it attack was authorized inside or already had home access. Interviewing neighbors was part of the investigation. Several reported no alarms or shouts and no nighttime noises. A residential area with sound common travel and security systems, the quiet stood out. Investigators also noted movement only possible through the house, someone familiar with its softly layout. The absence of outside interference supposed the attacker knew where they went and how to move without gaining attention. Police worked to rebuild the timeline. Focus quickly turned to Nick Reiner. According investigators, said Nick left home soon after the murders. By 4:00 a.m. on December 14th, he arrived, the Pierside Hotel. Hotel staff later said officers that his conduct was not suspicious concern. Checked in peacefully. He said normally. No interaction, information indicated anxiety. But when inspectors investigated the hotel room, blood was found inside after Nick left the chamber, connecting him to the crime. This discovery linked the hotel stay to events at Brentwood Mansion and anchored Nick's unfolding timeline. The stay was brief. Nick left up there long. Left within hours. Reinforcement that he wasn't settling or concealing, but leaving moved to spot. Later that day, surveillance cameras caught Nick at his station along Exposition Boulevard, Vermont Avenue. The footage showed him in by a drink, believed he was not hurried or confused. Again, the behavior seemed normal, that contrary to investigators believed happened. By the evening of December 14th, police had pinpointed him. At around 9:15 p.m., cops Nick was nabbed near Exposition Park close to Southern University, the California campus. Multiple police, a busy region, was encircled by cars. Intersection. The arrest occurred in public view. Despite considerable police presence, Nick did not object. He followed police orders and arrest without incident. End of day, the picture was become evident. A public debate, quiet house, no forced entrance, quick departure, and a long trail all across town. But what remained unknown was what transpired at home, because most more alarming details awaited. And when detectives examined the bodies, scene, timeline, what forensics found alter this case's understanding. Investigate and analyze forensically. The Brentwood home was secured. Responding forensic team's biggest unresolved question: be timeframes and witnesses. When did Reiner died and how happened? Medical examiner begins with analysis of death time. Without home surveillance, without clear attack-related time, investigators used physical indications from bodies. Two of them foremost were rigor mortis and lividity. Rigor mortis is muscle stiffness after death. Lividity is blood settliness. Body when the heart stops. Together, such signs enable forensic experts to estimate someone's age deceased. Given these facts, the medical examiner found both Michelle likely died early a.m., around 12 hours prior their bodies were found. This time matched investigators long suspected. The attack occurred while the area was peaceful, when most people sleeping, and unlikely to notice anything strange. Following this, detectives turned to examining injuries. Both multiple sharp forces hit victims. Clinical term for injuries: wound descriptions by forensic pathologists caused by a knife or similar weapon. Injuries were also nearby. Evidence was lacking. Distance between them, aggressor and victim. It means the not a remote attack. It necessary proximity, direct touch, steady movement. What notable to investigators was not simply presence of sharp force injuries, but their number. Recurrent wounds suggested the violence persisted. One moment. Not one strike, retreat follows. Over time, it period, however fleeting. From forensically, repeated injuries seem to indicate persistence rather than whim. Detectives avoid emotional conclusions, yet they draw legal ones. Maintaining action endorses attackers' continuous intent rather than ceased. Based on the forensic findings, Nick Reiner officially charged with 2 charges: first-degree murder, 1 count each parent. First-degree murder is highest. Reserve serious homicide charge for prosecutors, suspect murder aim, and often premeditation. But the charges continued. Also, prosecutors introduced special case circumstances since it adds several victims. Under California law, exceptional cases murder case to the highest level legal category. The classification isn't symbolic. Changes everything about case progress. With specific circumstances, the potential sentences become most lawful severity. If found guilty, Nick Reiner must choose prison without parole or death sentence. The LA District Attorney stated that their choice was the gravest charge office can bring. This statement showed trust in forensic findings and highlighted the evidence met legal requirements necessary for such charges. Investigators ultimately set a schedule: clear cause of death and injuries, maintaining close-range violence, and absence of forcible entry, movement, evidence gathered after. The rest was these discoveries to enter courtroom. Nick Reiner appearing before a judge, setting, constraints, and even people were shocked by his attire. Watching that first court appearance would signal another turning, indicate a case specified by shock. The stunning court appearance. On morning of December 17, 2025, Nick Reiner entered Los Angeles, a first courtroom after his arrest. Until then, the case had existed largely through police briefings, charging documents, fragments of public information. This case began with hearing. Officially entered court. From after that, everything said and recorded in court became official legal record. The setting was restricted. Court administrators blocked room, cameras, no live footage was allowed. There were no TV crews inside. Broadcast gear, no public feed. Few reporters were present. Allowed to watch the proceedings with lawyers and court workers. The limitations existed before Nick arrived and stay throughout the hearing. Nick went to court. Escorted. Deputies accompanied him. He took his defense seatable. wearing harm revention smock issued during early custody significant crimes. The garment was visible yet ignored by the court. No comment from the judge, no explanation was given during the proceedings. Hearing moved onward without reference. Once court was in session, charges were read. Formally, Nick Reiner was charged with 2 first-degree counts murder. Death-related count his father's second linked to mother's death. Charges were typical legal terminology without elaboration. Nick allegedly stayed silent. When judge asked if he understood his rights, Nick said briefly, confirming he did. It was that he only spoke once during the hearing that he did not plead. He didn't ask, he ignored the queries. Charges more. Nick remained focused on proceedings, but did not interact exceeds requirements. After the charges were filed, court moved to scheduling. Nick's counsel sought postpone the arraignment. The request granted. Judge set new January 7, 2026, adding time before Nick would need to plead. The decision was made without opposition to the prosecution. The hearing continued right away. Then did observers recognize the person beside Nick. His defense attorney was Allen Attorney Jackson, whose name alone carried weight. Jackson was big. Experienced with high-stakes cases open scrutiny. Over time, he had represented defendants in instances occurred over months or years continual media coverage. His clients included Kevin Spacey, Harvey Karen Reed, Weinstein. A choice of Jackson instantly changed the case that became apparent. This wasn't provisional defense. It wasn't short-term legal structure. It was indication that the defense anticipated a lengthy, voluminous filings and close examination of all elements prosecution would present. As the Nick was let out after the hearing, that same way he entered, discreetly without comment. Nothing was spoken to the press. The prosecution offered nothing. Further. The defenders remained silent. Courtroom cleared practically immediately as it filled. Yet outside the courtroom conversation was just beginning. Within hours, focus turned away from hearing into another inquiry. How this defense was funded. Legal specialists highlighted that incidents involving 2 first-degree murder charges, especially those with specific needs-linked conditions, rarely resolve quickly. These involve substantial forensics review, expert evidence, and lengthy pretrial motions. Costs mount rapidly. Estimates predicted such a protection costs over $1 million before trial date set. Nick Reiner never publicly recorded income or career that easily justify that cost. Thus, speculation followed almost immediately. Observers suggested Reiner family finances estate may pay for defense. Some wondered if estate assets could be used. Estate law experts said the issue is complex. Sometimes shared or inherited assets can cover legal fees. Sometimes such use leads to disagreements or court challenges from others benefited. None of these were handled during hearing. Court did not inquire about funding and the defense remained silent. Even without confirmation, the talk spread swiftly. Public viewpoint divided. Some claimed access for skilled legal representation basic right regardless of charges. Others were uneasy about maybe family-linked assets this could be used. The argument occurred outside court while proceedings inside remained strict procedural. The family situation seemed unsettling. Some surviving relatives reportedly hoped Nick would obtain psychological therapy in addition to criminal charges. These reports were not confirmed by official comments or court files. From the prosecution's perspective, the position remained unaltered. The prosecution said that the evidence supported first-degree murder charges. They cited the violent attack and Nick's actions following the deaths. They said that the case met the legal requirement for the charges made. Due to exceptional circumstances for several murders, sentencing alternatives were predetermined. If convicted, Nick Reiner risks life imprisonment without parole or the death penalty. No alternative sentencing options were available for the existing charges. Outside the courtroom, the case progressed. Investigators continued their work. Attorneys prepared for the following phase. Information that was not yet public circulated quietly among those engaged. Despite the courtroom silence, Nick Reiner's presence eventually became apparent. Nick's statement changed the case discussion in the days that followed. Nick's stunning reveal. Nick Reiner stated he did not bond with his father as a child. This divide impacted his self-perception inside the family. He reported feeling like an alien in his own family, observing connections without knowing how to participate. Although Rob Reiner had common interests with his other children, including sports, hobbies, and routines, Nick did not easily fit into those places. The household appeared secure and supportive, but Nick felt alienated, living beside his family rather than with them. Rob Reiner did not have a classic absent parent role. He was present, accomplished, involved, and truly invested in his family. However, success can build distance without design. Nick was raised in a world shaped by work, timetables, and pressure. In a home where love existed, connections were not always successful. Nick became increasingly isolated and began to withdraw instead of finding his place. Without a strong support system, he gravitated towards peer groups and places that provided escape rather than structure. He began using illegal substances during this time, initially as an experiment and later as a habit. By age 15, his addiction led to his admission to rehab. This phase was not conducted secretly or quietly. Early, repeated, and urgent treatment was sought. The drugs involved were significant. Nick later admitted to taking high-risk, highly dependent drugs. His addiction progressed similarly to many families struggling with substance misuse. Brief improvement is followed by severe relapse. Due to relapses, Nick's life became unstable. He was homeless and moved between states, including Maine, New Jersey, and Texas. There were no lengthy travels or professional changes. These were periods without permanent homes or consistency. Despite turbulence, Rob and Michelle remained engaged. Over the years, they disclosed their son's troubles without denying blame in interviews. Frequent funding of treatment programs, rehabilitation stays, and emotional involvement were maintained. Friends of the family reported ongoing effort, phone calls, support, encouragement, and patience despite setbacks. At one point, Rob tried a new method. Instead of dividing work and family, he integrated Nick into his career. They worked together on the 2015 film Being Charlie, based on Nick's experience with addiction and rehabilitation. Addiction was not depicted as resolved or vanquished in the film. It showed recurrence, resistance, and the challenge of lasting transformation. Nick demonstrated stability during the collaboration time. His work was steady. He was organized. He spent time with his father in a certain setting. Close family members observed a change. Previous pandemonium seemed to have subsided. Focus and routine. Unfortunately, the steadiness did not persist. Nick's development was halted after a brief relapse. He reverted to patterns that shaped his adulthood. Unpredictability, instability, and distance. Every relapse hampered healing, both physically and mentally, for all involved. During the years preceding the incident, family members expressed growing alarm. More cycles were happening faster. The stakes were raised. What was formerly manageable through intervention became unstable. Rob and Michelle supported Nick, but it did not eliminate his dread. People close to him expressed concern for his recuperation, Nick's, and their own safety. Nick's admittance of not fully bonding with his father reveals a complex connection influenced by addiction, remorse, struggle, and disappointment on both sides. At the Christmas gathering, the tension between them was not new. The argument that night was not isolated. It came after years of work, relapse, reconciliation, and unresolved estrangement. Prior to the final night, the family had been managing these dynamics. Nick's addiction changed his decisions, relationships, and limits throughout time. He experienced dissociation from childhood to maturity, accompanied by substance use, instability, and multiple attempts at rehabilitation. This pattern persisted in the years preceding the disaster. The relatives' confession. In the aftermath of Rob Reiner and his wife's deaths, Romy and Jake Reiner, their surviving children, provided the first public comment. They released a united statement acknowledging the severe loss and shock. The communication did not address legal questions or explain occurrences. The focus was on mourning. The deaths were described as heartbreaking and reflected the family's deep sadness. Rob and Michelle place a strong emphasis on their roles as parents and emotional centers of their lives, rather than solely as public people. The message acknowledged both the public and private tragedies within a shattered family. Romy and Jake also expressed gratitude to the people for their support. Messages arrived from throughout the country and the world. Many people, including friends, co-workers, and strangers, offered their condolences and recollections. Although the family acknowledged support, they requested privacy to grieve and prepare for the future. Nothing further was said. There have been no interviews, appearances, or attempts to clarify or address speculation. As the family withdrew from public view, the legal process proceeded independently from grief. A private memorial was conducted for Rob and Michelle behind the scenes. The event was purposefully kept small and not open to the public. The event was attended by family, friends, and colleagues from Rob Reiner's career. There were no cameras present and no public program provided thereafter. The event was described as controlled and personal by attendees. Instead of celebrating career milestones or accolades, the event was a quiet gathering of longtime friends of Rob and Michelle, away from the media and legal proceedings. Across Hollywood, responses to the tragedy persist. Many actors and filmmakers who worked with Rob Reiner expressed their recollections and tributes. Kathy Bates, who worked with Reiner in her early film career, evaluated his influence as a filmmaker and collaborator. Kate Hudson praised his impact on performers across generations. Nick Robinson, who worked with Reiner later in his career, praised his direction and generosity on set. The tributes ranged in tone but shared stability, respect, and a sense that Rob Reiner created safe settings for individuals to excel. Many praised his ability to switch genres without sacrificing expression or purpose. Rob Reiner's work gained prominence as the industry pondered on it. He directed pictures that become cultural monuments through character and restraint, not via extravaganza. The Princess Bride unites audiences across generations with its blend of humor, sincerity, and fantasy, without cynicism. Many consider Stand By Me to be one of the most authentic depictions of youth and grief on television. Harry Met Sally revolutionized romantic comedy by focusing on dialogue rather than cliches. Reiner's legacy was based on consistency, not volume. According to colleagues, he was noted for being prepared, trusting performers, and avoiding excess. His films did not rely on shock or spectacle. They needed people. Michelle Singer-Reiner was also recognized, but quite subtly. She supported philanthropic projects and remained involved in family life, working mostly in the background. Friends characterized the pair as partners across decades of work, parenthood, and public life. The juxtaposition between Rob Reiner's public legacy and his private death circumstances was unavoidable during tributes. The same industry that praised his efforts now followed the legal matter involving his family. The family experienced no divide between these realms. Public remembering coexisted with active grief. While legal processes persisted, professional praise was received. The two realities overlapped, but were never addressed simultaneously. As the legal process continues, tributes and memorials remind us that behind every charge and headline were individuals, parents, partners, and friends whose absence will be felt long after the cameras roll. What do you think? Did Nick Reiner conduct the crimes, or was he framed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you love the video, please click the next one on your screen.